Hello, everyone. My name is Dieter Fenkart-Freschel, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the National Park Foundation. Last March seems a long time ago, doesn't it? At that time, the National Park Foundation had completed a very successful end-of-year fundraising campaign, and schools had just started their new semester and were thinking about upcoming field trips, including to national parks via our Open Outdoors for Kids program. The foundation was about to launch its spring activations and messaging to encourage people to go find their park, and conversations with our park partners were advancing positively. Then, on Friday, March 13th of all days, the foundation went out on its first full telework day in response to COVID-19. And at the time, we thought we'd be back in a few weeks, mid-April, possibly Memorial Day. Since that day, the pandemic has tested us, all of us. What would the future hold? And how would we respond to the uncertainty in the workplace, in our personal lives? So before I continue, I'd like to express a sincere thank you from the entire foundation to you, our corporate partners, for being there with us, for sticking with us, and for supporting the national parks. You play a critical role in the success of our vision and mission. So how did we transition to this new world? Well, we moved to a work-from-home environment pretty seamlessly thanks to the foresight of our IT department. Our staff was incredible. I commend them all for a very quick and smooth transition to this new normal. And in a matter of days, we were meeting virtually via Microsoft Teams or Zoom. And despite the distance, at times we felt closer together. Phone calls with partners suddenly became video chats. And faces that we rarely saw suddenly were sitting around the virtual table with us. Yeah, virtual table with us. Right. In short, NPF adapted. And as the pandemic progressed in March and April, so did our response to it. We realized this was not a short-term crisis, but a long-term challenge. Some parks were closing, park partners and programming were being canceled or postponed, and some of our partners were limiting their operations. Gateway communities were wondering about tourism and travel. So there's a lot of questions floating around, and NPF asked itself, how could we and our park partners continue to make parks relevant and accessible at a time when access to those very parks was in flux? Or how could we leverage technology platforms to create engaging online educational tools or content? Or how could we create in-park experiences for people to connect to? So we challenged our team. We told our staff to think more about what kind of a difference we wanted to make. We wanted to understand, how did we want to be remembered for in this very moment? So building on our core strategies at the foundation, we leaned heavily into 3 organizational priorities. And I'll be sharing those with you today. Those 3 priorities were designed to do 2 things. The first was to respond to the challenges of the moment, and the second was to advance our mission in a changing world. So priority 1 was all about advancing the needs of our collective park community with leadership as well as with technical assistance. Priority number 2 was to support our closest partner, the National Park Service, with reinforcing and positive messaging and content. And number 3, our organizational priority number 3, was investing in creativity and innovation with a focus on broader storytelling and on digital experiences. So let's talk about our first priority, the park partner community. The National Park Foundation works with more than 400 national park partners across the country to advance the mission of the National Park Service. Those partners are a mix of different groups. Some are focused on raising private philanthropic dollars for their individual park. And those groups are commonly referred to as the Friends groups. But then there are also groups who are focused on educational programs, on running and managing the bookstores, and on recruiting youth into Service Corps efforts. It's a wide variety of individual groups. And NPF saw the pandemic as an opportunity to engage the park partner community at a critical time of need. In those first few weeks and in the first couple of months, we conducted initial outreach to close to 100 organizations to understand more specifically what was happening on the ground, what were challenges they were encountering, what were they experiencing. And what we learned was that most of our partners were feeling the financial impact of the pandemic. We knew we had to assist. And with the passage of the CARES Act, NPF took a leadership role. We shared resources with the community, and we facilitated webinars for the community to learn more about the PPP and the SBA loans. Those sessions help provide guidance to these organizations that might not have otherwise been able to obtain or might not have otherwise been able to secure the resources to engage and learn more about these different loans. And I'm proud to say that the community, as we've learned now, that more than 60% of our park partner community applied and received a PPP, which just speaks to the incredible resilience of this community. In addition, the foundation held regular virtual fireside chats and leadership roundtables with leaders from the National Park Service as well as with the park partner community. And the goal of those various sessions was to A, keep our donors, our stakeholders, our partners informed and engaged, but then also to allow for an open forum to collaborate and share best practices at this very time of uncertainty. And as it relates to financial support to our partners, the National Park Foundation launched a strategic grant program that was designed to help fund projects for partners who needed to either reevaluate their business plans, reassess their strategic goals, or invest in areas that they felt would allow them to emerge stronger coming out of the pandemic. And for existing grantees, the foundation loosened our grant guidelines wherever possible and wherever feasible to allow them greater flexibility, which in turn gave them the opportunity to deliver more impact to their National Park Service sites and also help the National Park Foundation maintain its favorable 70% impact ratio. So let me tell you about our second organizational priority around messaging. And I can confidently say that this moment has reminded all of us of the importance of nature and the outdoors. These places are meant to be protected and preserved, but more importantly, these places are meant to be enjoyed by everyone. And I can personally attest to the many long walks I took in Rock Creek Park at the end of some very long and tiring days. They helped ground me. They helped me get some of that clutter out of my brain. And NPF realized that we played an important role in helping broadcast and amplify a message of. And NPF realized we played an important role in broadcasting and amplifying a message of strength and of hope. And that spirit is captured in our Recreate Responsibly campaign, a call to action embraced by the National Park Foundation, by the National Park Service, and a growing group of park partners. It's a banner for social responsibility, encouraging physical distancing and directing visitors to lesser-known parks to reduce congestion at some of those busier parks. And foundational to all of the Recreate Responsibly guidelines is the idea of creating a more inclusive outdoors, safe and welcoming for all. The results have been very impressive so far. In the last 3 months, the 4-part video series directly associated with the Recreate Responsibly hashtag have been viewed 315,000 times. Earned media generated more than 213 million impressions, and our social content generated more than 8 million impressions. So incredibly successful. In addition, the National Park Foundation is also experimenting with online geo-targeted ads to help inform visitors before they actually go into some of the busiest national parks across the country. So let me now tell you about our third organizational priority, creativity and innovation. And the National Park Foundation has leaned into this heavily. We are encouraging our staff and our park partners to think more broadly about how we can, at this very moment, use innovative practices to encourage greater participation in our parks and make parks more relevant to wider audiences. Not just now during the pandemic, but beyond it too. And with an ever-changing audience of more digitally native visitors, this digital connection is going to be more critical in the future. We believe it's an investment in our future. We mobilized quickly, and in partnership with our partners at the Park Service, we temporarily modified our Find Your Park campaign to Find Your Virtual Park campaign. During National Park Week, we highlighted virtual park tours using webcams, and we shared stories of all of these places and what they meant to our community of national park champions. We also redesigned our website and shared educational content as well as kid-friendly activities via our social channels. And finally, we wanted to take a moment for the nation to thank the hard work of the National Park Service staff through a tribute to those staff who protect these magnificent places for us, for all of us, as we return to the national parks. So more broadly speaking, the National Park Foundation is focused on creating digital assets that will benefit the parks now and in the future. And distance learning most certainly can play a role in delivering educational content. But imagine for a moment a virtual park classroom where kids from across the country can participate in a National Park Service site that they might not be able to get to. And imagine for a moment being able to use AI technology for those kids to interact with a virtual park ranger and ask that ranger any question and gain knowledge from that ranger on a site that they could not get to. That's the big thinking that we'd really like to explore. Or imagine the power of technology in telling a broader story, such as our work in gathering oral histories and expanding digital storytelling at national park sites that share the story of African American history and culture. Or our recent $500,000 grants to make women's stories more accessible to all via our Women in Parks initiative. This is all achievable, and we can help the National Park Service create a 21st century visitor experience with a 21st century workforce. So in conclusion, the National Park Foundation isn't just reacting to the moment. We're embracing it. And 6 months into this journey, I'm thrilled to be standing here in front of you virtually, telling you how the National Park Foundation is delivering upon its vision and mission in ways that are going to live way beyond this pandemic. And I'd just like to reiterate that we couldn't do this without you, our corporate partners. So thank you, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.